So hi guys, welcome to this CME on Perforator-Propeller flaps. So as is customary, let us begin with the most basic and introductory topic, which is the perforism theory, the planning and the biogeometry of perforator-propeller flaps. So perforism theory is important because it helps us in actual planning and orientation and designing of perforator as well as propeller flaps. So let us go a bit into its details. So what is the perforism concept? Perforism concept was given by Michael Sensir. It is an extension, I would say, of the angiosome concept which was given by Taylor and his colleagues. So perforism refers to a vascular territory which is supplied by a single perforator vessel. Now each perforator has got its distinct arterial vascular territory. It has got its own unique perfusion pattern. So when blood flows through a particular perforator, the vascular network is densest near the perforator and then it goes on decreasing towards the periphery. So this basis forms the basis of our perforator flap design and harvest. Now in clinical practice, what is the significance of the perforism theory? The perforism theory helps us how perforator flaps are able to survive. It also gives us an idea as to how large flaps can survive on a single perforator. Why flap orientation matters. When do we orient a flap vertically? When do we orient a flap transversely? All this is explained based on the perforism concept. This perforism concept also allows us a reliable flap design with minimal donor site morbidity. Now let us see how vascular flow is distributed within a particular perforism. Now here we are seeing a perforator. The blood flow from the perforator is multidirectional. We can see it is going in all the sides. So it is multidirectional. It forms a dense network near the perforator. As you can see in this particular area, the network is particularly dense. As we are going towards the periphery, the network is going on decreasing. Two perforators are communicated by indirect as well as direct linking perforators as well as indirect linking perforators. So large linking vessels radiate outwards and connect to the adjoining territories. Now, how are the adjacent perforisms connected? Mainly through direct linking vessels. These are the more important ones. Here you can see the direct linking vessels which connect the perforators directly. And then there are the indirect perforators or the indirect linking vessels which flow through the subdermal plexuses. Now, as far as the flap survival is concerned, our direct linking flow vessels are more important as compared to the indirect linking flow vessels. In addition to our direct and indirect linking vessels, we also have the communicating branches. Now here we are seeing the communicating branches. What role do the communicating branches play? They maintain the vascular continuity and provide alternative pathways for perfusion. So in case our direct pathways, direct linking pathways or indirect linking pathways are hampered due to any way, these communicating vessels can form a potential pathwork or vascular basis of nourishment of the flap. Now how do we plan the axis of a perforator or a propeller flap? The axis of the flap is determined by the orientation of the linking vessels. Now it is important to note that the linking vessels are parallel to the axis of the limbs and are perpendicular to the midline whereas when the trunk is concerned. Flap design should follow the direction of maximum vascular flow which corresponds to the direction of linking vessels. Again it comes down to the same part. The direction of linking vessels is parallel to the axis of the limb and it is perpendicular when it comes to designing flaps over the trunk. So parallel to the axis of the limbs to capture the most reliable vascular territories, and the flap should be designed perpendicular to the midline. They should follow oblique transverse direction, which is parallel to the cutaneous dermatomes, or we can say parallel to the ribs as well. So this is also one of the important parts of the perforasome concept, which is called the preferential filling of the perforasome. Now perfusion occurs in sequence. Perforators from the same source artery fill first. Perforators from adjacent source arteries fill later. Now let us assume that this is the descending branch of the lateral circumflex femoral. We have got perforators A, perforators B and perforator C. Now when perforator B is filled, blood flows from perforator B to perforator A and to perforator C. Blood flows from B to the anteromedial territory only after the territory of the ALT flap is completed. So what I mean by this is, even though perforator of the anteromedial thigh is nearer to perforator B than perforator A, perforator A is preferentially filled from perforator B, which is called the preferential filling of the perforasome. So that also explains to us that if we have an extremely long and an extremely wide anterolateral thigh perforator flap, this is the axis of the descending branch. So this is the direction of the preferential filling. It is very likely that this part of the flap, if at all, will have problems, because this is in the anteromedial thigh territory, and this part of the flap is less likely to have problems because it is in the direction of the descending branch of the lateral circumflex femoral. So this is the preferential filling of perforasomes theory, and it also helps us in designing and expansion of the vascular territory, and in the end it helps us in designing of the flaps. Now, can a single perforator perfuse a large flap? Yes. How does it happen? When a flap is elevated, we tend to clamp the other branches which are not of any significance to us. So if we try to understand this like a water tank, it has got multiple taps. If we close all the other taps, we have maximum blood flow coming in through the only tap which is open. So what happens is the perfusion pressure increases in the selected perforator, which is this one, and then this recruits the linking vessel. So when the perfusion pressure increases over here, the perfusion pressure is thereby transmitted to the linking vessels, which allows perfusion of the adjacent perforasomes, and thereby we are able to harvest larger flaps. So in this way, a single perforator can perfuse a large flap. How does perforator location influence flap design? So designing of perforator flaps should be done in two ways. One thing is there are perforator near the joints. When the perforators are near the joints, blood flow is directed away from the articulation. So we have to design our flaps based like this with perforator in the base. Similarly, when a perforator is located in between articulations, so between the wrist joint and between the elbow joint, if our perforator is located, flap flow or the flow of the blood vessels become multi-directional. It can go in either ways. It can go here. So the flap can be designed in several ways. We can design our flap like this. We can also design our flap like this. So this is how the perforator location influences flap design. This is also one of the important findings of the perforasome theory, which is explained beautifully by Michael Sentzer in his landmark article on perforasome theory in the PRS. Now coming to biogeometry of propeller flaps and movement of propeller flaps. This is the defect, the width of the defect, or rather we have a perforator over here, perforator P, which is marked. we measure the distance from the perforator to the distal edge of the defect. This distance is x. Now this distance is replicated on the long axis of the vessel or on the long axis of the extremity. We add x plus 1.5 or 2 centimeters to provide some space for axial rotation and also consider thickness of the skin, and we mark the distal edge of the flap. Now regarding the width of the defect or width of the flap, we take a bit extra as compared to the width of the defect, because perforator-propeller flaps are known to engorge, known to congest in the post-operative period. So a bit more increase in width is also helpful. Once the flap is islanded, it is axially rotated on the axis of this perforator, so that this point over here, the distalmost point over here, covers the defect over here. We have a defect or a secondary defect over here, which can be either skin grafted, or in case the excess tissue is there, we can close it in a linear fashion. So this is how the movement of a propeller flap works. It rotates axially around a particular perforator. Now let us try and see what is the length to width ratio of propeller flaps. Many times it appears that the propeller flaps are too long and too lengthy, and we feel that they won't survive. But let us understand the dynamics of the length to width ratio. Now let us assume that the width of our defect or the width of our flap is x. Perforator is located over here, which is P. Let us divide this flap into two flaps based on location of the perforator P. One flap, this flap, is of ratio 1:2 because x is the width and 2x is the length. Other flap, we have ratio of 1:3 because x is the width and 3x is the length. The total length of this flap is 3x plus 2x, which is 5x. So we don't have a single flap with a ratio of 1:5. We have two different flaps, of which the ratio of one flap is 1:2 and ratio of the second flap is 1:3. So these flaps form within our safe territory, or our typical definitions of safe flaps. Here I would also like to point out the importance of placing the perforator strategically. Now if our perforator is eccentrically placed, maybe over here, maybe over here, then the total length to width ratio of our perforator flap or our propeller flap likely to change, and it is likely to cause problems. So proper selection of perforator and strategic placement of the perforator in the perforator flap as well as the propeller flap design is very important to have good outcomes. So that was all about the Perforome concept, the biogeometry and designing of perforator-propeller flaps, and the length to width ratio of perforator-propeller flaps. Thank you.